Everyone, it's Julie. Today we'll be making one of my favorite childhood dishes, spaghetti and meatballs. Super easy and delicious. Almost every person on planet Earth enjoys a delicious bowl of spaghetti and meatballs at least once a year, right? Right. So let's get started. So I use a saute pan with high sides to make my sauce. Drizzled a little bit of olive oil and threw in my chopped onions. I sauteed the onions on medium-low heat for about 3 minutes, make sure not to burn them, and then added your minced garlic. After I threw in the garlic, I seasoned it with a pinch of salt and pepper. Then I threw in the fresh basil. Do not saute the garlic for more than 15 to 20 seconds. Garlic burns extremely quickly. I like to use 1 can of peeled tomatoes and 1 can of crushed tomatoes. You can do both cans of crushed tomatoes, but I do like the sauce to be a little bit chunky, and you won't get a chunky sauce from a can of crushed tomatoes. Poured in about a cup of water to loosen it up a bit. I took a potato masher, or in this case a tomato masher, and I mashed up those tomatoes. Even though you mash the tomatoes, you're still going to have little chunks of tomatoes floating around your sauce, and that's what I love. Ironically, I hated those chunks of tomatoes in my sauce when I was a kid. I also hated fruit chunks in my yogurt as a kid. Things really change when you get older though. I seasoned it with salt, pepper, oregano, and a little bit of sugar. Tomatoes can be a bit sour and the sugar will help with that. Some people recommend adding half of a grated carrot. Carrots are sweet, but sugar works for me. I really tried looking for the lid of this pan. I couldn't find it, so I used aluminum foil, and then I lowered the heat to medium-low. So while the sauce was simmering, I started making my meatballs. I used a blend of beef, pork, and veal. I broke it up with my fingers. You may use a fork. If you don't want to use a blend of beef, pork, and veal, you can use beef by itself, and they will be delicious as well. Here I have 1 slice of bread that I placed in my food processor, and I added it to my beef. You can just break it up with your fingers. I threw in some parsley, fresh garlic. I didn't use onions since the sauce already has onions. I know it has garlic too, but you can never have enough garlic. An egg, some milk to moisten things up a bit, a little bit of chili powder, I like the kick it gives, lots of Parmesan cheese, and make sure to season this well with salt and pepper. And now I did mention earlier that spaghetti and meatballs was my favorite childhood dish. I used to make it all the time by myself while I watched Nickelodeon. If you're wondering how I made it back then, 2 words, Chef Boyardee, Manhunt, Truth or Dare, Monopoly, Pool, Marco Polo, Doug and Rugrats. There was just no time for cooking when I was a kid. To all my young viewers making all of these recipes, you guys seriously rock. Alright, enough blabbering. Mix the meat until everything is incorporated, but make sure not to overmix. And now if you're a beginner cook, you might struggle with the salt and pepper to taste when things are raw like this. So a little tip I could give you is to fry a little piece like I showed you, or 1 meatball before you start rolling all of them. The worst thing you can do is serve your guests under-seasoned food, so that's optional to do. I rolled little meatballs like this. You may make them as little or as big as you like. Whatever size you prefer, just make sure they're all the same size so they all cook evenly. So in a skillet with some vegetable oil, I fried the meatballs for about 3 to 4 minutes on each side over medium-high heat. The inside will still be raw, but I like to finish cooking them in the sauce. They are pretty small, so I just rocked my skillet back and forth, and they'll just flip over on their own. If they're bigger, you can always use some tongs to flip them over. My sauce has been simmering for about 20 minutes or so. I like to add some extra fresh basil. I place the meatballs into the pan, and I let them simmer in the sauce for an additional 20 minutes or so, covered. And funny thing is, I loved spaghetti and meatballs so much as a kid that when I went to restaurants with my parents, I would always order spaghetti and meatballs and they would cringe. Oh well, I couldn't get enough. Alright, so I placed the spaghetti into my pan. I don't like to serve it diner style. Diner style, they just ladle the sauce onto your pasta and they don't completely drain the pasta. So I like to mix the pasta with the sauce and drain the pasta really well. I just don't prefer it watery. So this is how I served it. It was completely drenched in the sauce, which I love, and it was a bit messy, but I cleaned it off later. I like to serve 3 to 4 meatballs per person, but of course it all depends on the actual person. My brother prefers 6 to 7 meatballs, so then I just subtract meatballs from his girlfriend's plate. Just kidding. I grated some fresh Parmesan on top. So this in total should take about 45 minutes to make, but it's so worth it. The kids will love it, you will love it. I placed 2 basil leaves on top to make it look cute. I hope you guys really give this recipe a try. Hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you all so much for watching.